once more into the breaches. Hello again. Welcome to our lore about the small folk hermit kingdom of Texta. Last time we talked about the 9 kobold cities and their reginas, or queens. This time we're switching to the Goblin side of things, the 9 above-ground settlements, and the Gwens who rule them. We'll go from the top of the mountain down. That's not helping. Gotta clean those. On the first terrace below the snow and ice and wind above, there is Suswood. The society here prides itself on self-reliance and using only what nature provides for them. Though they fully understand and accept that more modern tools and materials exist and are useful, they prefer to live in the Stone Age. Their own stone, bone, and wooden tools and their natural medicines are just as useful and durable as anything of the modern age. Their Gwen is named Mirko. She pretends towards senility and dementia, but her mind is sharp, almost as sharp as her obsidian axe. And she's always listening, watching, and paying attention to the goings-on around her. The Stone Age city is frequented by a large pack of half-tame coyotes. They seem to treat the goblins with the same respect they give their own kind. The goblins reciprocate in this relationship, even going so far as to helping each other in their hunts and allowing their children to play together freely. Suswood is a slightly smaller city, housing around 2,000 goblins in wattle and daub roundhouses with thatched roofs. On the next terrace down, there are 2 settlements. First is Dapnomwick, in the northwest, the farming city where druids rule and assize are set to control most of the nation's economy. There are herds of livestock here, but no goats. There are orchards of many different fruit, but no apples. Fields burst with grain and vegetables, apiaries house bees to pollinate the crops and produce honey to harvest and sell. The fields are open, but the city itself, the homes of the citizens, are all safely inside a defensive castle wall. The roundhouses here are clean and whitewashed, with well-tended gardens and lawns, and shops open for business. The ruler and her elder council are all druids, as are many of the 3,000 or so citizens. Her name, the Gwen of this place, is called Cheldy. She is a shrewd businesswoman and a negotiator, knowing the value of her people's products. This is where prices and values are set for most of the foodstuffs in Texta. Only goats and apples are beyond her reach, but those will be explained 2 terraces down. On the southernmost portion of this same terrace lies Hineg Abbey, where the focus is in martial arts, philosophical training, warrior monks, philosophers, and historians, and dogs. They subsist here on scrub plains of poor fertility, but they manage. The packs of stray dogs are considered friends and never harm anyone unless they are harmed first. Since its founding so long ago, those who train here have recorded both the history and the mythology of all of Texta to the best of their ability. Their Gwen, whom the 3,000 or so goblins here called Grand Mistress, is named Potis. She and her council, mostly for their own entertainment, tend to speak in riddles and answer questions only with more questions. The only two physical products this place provides are paper and pure. The Abbey is the only place in Texta that produces paper, giving them a little bit of a monopoly to support themselves. Pure is a rather polite term used for dog shit, which is used by tanners for softening leather. Most of it is collected and sold to the alchemists and artificers of Skychester, 2 terraces down. There's only one city on the next terrace. In the east is Tonerbrook, the city of magic where wizards, warlocks, enchanters, sorcerers, and their ilk mostly reside. They teach magic here, but there's always a price. And it's almost never payable in coin. The city founder, Toner Ulpeha, was a Gwen for more than 100 years, and nobody can say exactly when she finally died, if she died at all. Her home, the Brock Tower, sits in the center of town, where more than most just leave it untouched and avoid looking at it if they can. The current Gwen here, and most of the Gwens since the time of Ulpeha, is constantly looking over her shoulder and wary of the machinations of those next in line for her throne. Skelos is nearly 100 years old, but has only been Gwen for about 5 years. Her and her elder council will commonly sit in silence for long periods, gazing back and forth and wondering who might be plotting against whom. None of them trust any of the rest. The houses here were all stone built, with clay diking and fired. They're solid. There are souterrain tunnels beneath all the roads and leading to most of the buildings, so everyone has a place to escape if they are attacked. There are now 3 settlements on the next terrace. First, Hirkusted, which actually was the first. It was settled 1700 years ago by the original founder of Texta, Dlagos Hirku. The roundhouses here are strong and long-standing, mostly of mortared stone construction with wide paved streets and plenty of goats being ridden or pulling wagons. The city of about 4,000 is centered by what looks like a stone fortress, but is really just a goat ranch. The high walls are necessary to keep the animals from escaping. This is the reason Dapnomwick doesn't control the prices for goats. The Gwen of this place, Hig Essos, manages the goat ranch and is officially, at least, the head of the military for the Goblin half of Texta, answerable only to the Great Gwen or her Imperatrix counterpart. Military training for national service happens here. So the city is often larger than its citizens would suggest, nearly double on rare occasion. Just north of the city stands a very large and very old orchard, where a man named Whale Guer has been perfecting his apples through splicing and cross-pollinating for as long as the city has existed. He just never seems to die, and most people just don't seem to notice. But he takes his pride and pleasure in denying Dapnomwick the assize of apples. On the northwest of this terrace sits Skychester, a city of artifice, invention, and alchemy. Being a guild member here is more important than finding a suitable husband or wife. These are the 2,000 to 3,000 goblins who buy pure from the Abbey, reagents from Vix, apothecary herbs from Suswood above and Kelgalat next door, and alcohol from Yekurbi far below. They experiment constantly and create whatever the people of the mountain might need or desire enough to pay for. Often enough, something they might create isn't wanted at all, but they'll create it anyway, to at least learn something from the process. As a side note, this is the only place in Texta, above or below ground, where black powder is available. So they're paid well by the military. The Gwen here is called Woisos. She's an alchemist and isn't particularly interested in anything that isn't either caustic, poisonous, or incendiary. There have been times in Skychester when a new Gwen was so focused on her personal work that she didn't realize the title had passed to her until someone pointed it out. The buildings here might look a bit ramshackle, but that's because they are. They'll build out of whatever happens to be on hand, but every house has a basement with stone and metal walls. And every house is reinforced, mainly so they can contain and survive the rather common explosions from experiments gone awry. Third on this terrace, in the northeast, only a few miles from Skychester, lies Kelgalat. It's only been here about 5 years and has less than 100 people, of a few various races. Though building in a swamp might not seem wise or even possible, several of the citizens here know how. They're quite comfortable on the marshy soft ground, raising their own breed of goats, a small number of pigs, and their children. Their homes are diverse. The first family, so to speak, live in a square-built, 2-story clapboard farmhouse, sized for small people, sized for small folk, of course. There's a traditional goblin roundhouse nearby where another family lives, and 2 stone-built and buried halfling-style homes for 2 more families. A few others have joined the original settlers, taking advantage of a new set of resources and opportunities to Texta. Fishing and hunting in the swamp, collecting apothecary, and learning new skills. The Gwen here is called Candy, properly Incandescent Cori. By birth, she is a frost elf from the far north. But she's taken a goblin husband and a goblin name, given birth to 2 children of goblin blood, speaks the goblin language, and lives in a goblin nation under goblin law. As far as anyone in Texta is concerned, Candy is as much a goblin as any of the rest of them. The one thing that seems to set the citizens of Kelgalat apart from the rest of Texta, and something that everyone in Kelgalat shares in common, is that they refuse to wear shoes. They are all barefoot, all the time. This, although odd to most, makes perfect sense when you consider the state one's shoes would be in if they tried wearing them in a swamp every day. One terrace below these 3, in the southwest, sits Yakurbi, another city of around 3,000, give or take, who intermingle with the kobold warren of Marmoris quite regularly. They're a city of industry, working iron, ore they gain through trade with the kobolds, working stone for construction, using kilns to make lime, creating pottery and tools, as well as fermenting and distilling beer, wine, and liquor. Though founded by a blacksmith, the city is currently ruled by an alchemist. The Gwen is a distiller named Magtayo No. When not in discussions of import, she is silent as the grave, ignoring matters that bear little or no impact on her and her people. When she is brought to converse, she is loud, obnoxious, abrasive, and rudely direct. Also, she's usually at least partially drunk from her own products. The only way to both gain and hold her attention, or respect, is to share a drink with her and compliment her work. This, however, might not bode well for anyone who makes the attempt. Skychester buys Magtaio's drink to use as a disinfectant because it's so potent. The roundhouses here are dry stone built with corbelled roofs, well and truly little fortresses in their own right. The city is never quiet, as industry, ringing hammers and burning forges and kilns, run around the clock. We finally come to the deepest city of the goblins. This one with a smattering of other small folk in tow. On the western shore of the lake, set alongside one of the rivers running down the inside of the mountain, is Udeskjofjord, founded roughly 25 years ago by a band of displaced pirates, fishers, and sailors. Here they have continued in 2 of their original trades, swapping the third for a new occupation. They built and run a successful mill on the river. Their roundhouses are built in the Crannog style, set atop long poles that anchor them above the shallow shore of the river mouth, with boat slips and boardwalks to carry them ashore when needed. The lake is 4 miles long, crescent-shaped and 1 mile wide, though the bottom depths have never been found to measure. It's fresh water, tropically warm at the south end and near arctically cold at the north end. The 1,000 or so citizens find their private sea excellent for fishing and sailing. Their Gwen, a retired pirate captain named Pelu Udeskjo, due her age, is also the Great Gwen of all the goblins. She seems convivial and kind in most situations, and will remain so if dealt with honestly and fairly. But remember her former career. She is always armed, usually secretly, and usually multiply. If she carries a pistol or a cutlass openly, be assured there are more weapons you can't see. Her heavy walking stick might be a deck gun in disguise, a lantaka or miniature cannon. There might be a dagger tied into her hair or under her hat. And she knows how to use all of them. Aside her own armaments, the Great Gwen is guarded by 9 kobolds, by tradition, from the 9 cities she doesn't rule. Her favorites are the Salter and the Batrak, who commonly accompany her fishing for the larger prey in the lake. So there we have it. 9 goblin cities, 9 goblin queens, or Gwens as the case may be. Let me know what you do or don't like. What would you do differently? Give me ideas, make suggestions. Tell me if I made any mistakes so I can fix them. And as always, I'll talk to you next time.